Given the fact that the current president of the United States is no longer able to give long-form interviews, they're now trotting out Dr. Jill Biden like Edith Wilson, holding the hand of her decrepit husband and signing bills. They're trotting her out to the media to pretend that Joe is with it. So the question is, if Joe is with it, why isn't he on The View? Where is he? And first of all, is Jill Biden like a regular panelist at The View? I feel like this is her 7th appearance over at The View. That constellation of intellectual luminaries. Here is Dr. Jill explaining that Americans will choose Joe Biden because they will choose good over evil. Yeah, this kind of well-calibrated language is going to win over those independent voters.
How do you turn those numbers around with 5 months out? And are you fearful of what a second Trump term could look like?
Or a third, as Donald Trump says. So we are going to meet people where they are. We're going to go to college campuses. We're going to go to just every state that we can get into. I've been traveling every single day. Joe has been traveling as much as possible. And we're not going to take anything for granted. And those polls are going to turn, I'm confident of it, because as time goes on and as people start to focus a little bit more about what's at stake and start to become educated on the issues and the differences between the two men, I believe that Americans are going to choose good over evil.
Yes.
Yes, good over evil is what she's saying right there, because that's what this is a battle about. Nothing says unity in the country like declaring that everyone who is voting for the other guy is evil, like full-on evil. Meanwhile, she says, don't worry. In the debates, he's going to perform like magic. It's all been a lie. Everything that your eyes and ears have been telling you about Joe Biden being incompetent, bumbling, befuddled, all that's going to go away when you see him unleash his brilliant wit, his incisive brain. It's going to be mind-exploding to watch the genius at work, says Dr. Jill Biden from her perch atop America's medical system.
You know, I think the American people deserve a debate because you need to see your choices. You need to see Trump and you need to see the president and you need to see the differences. And my husband's, and you're going to see how smart he is and the experience he has. And then you'll see somebody who, like you're saying, I'm going to use Joy's words, can't put a sentence together. Right. And everything is beautiful and it's wonderful.
Tremendous. Bigly.
Yeah, tremendous. Yeah. So I think the American people deserve to see the two men who are running for this office.
Okay, well, we're going to find out, aren't we? And then, of course, she makes the case that if Donald Trump is elected, we will lose literally all of our rights, which is weird because your administration tried to force 80 million Americans to take a vaccination or lose their jobs. That'd be you guys. Here is more of Dr. Jill.
And women's rights, absolutely women's rights and IVF. I mean, we have to have a choice. And Joe wants to codify Roe. Yeah, and we have to. We have to fight hard so we get it back. Because, Joy, you and I remember when Roe came the law. Yeah. And we kept thinking, this won't be taken away, but we cannot take things for granted because they can. And think of the Supreme Court. Yeah. For God's sake, talk about things getting worse. Yeah. Can you imagine if we put any more Republicans on the Supreme Court? No. We will lose all of our rights. So we're talking about women's rights, gay rights. I mean, we will lose our rights and freedoms. Voting rights. Yes.
All of this is up at stake.
No, it isn't. You will be able to vote as you have been able to vote your entire lifetime. You will be able to vote. That's a promise. All this alarm, when they're pulling the fire alarm or mistaking it for a door release, if you're Jamal Bowman, when you're pulling the fire alarm this early, you got a problem. And just looking at the 2012 election polling, Obama versus Romney, because that's the last re-elect race we had that the incumbent actually won. The incumbent in that case, Barack Obama, who is deeply unpopular in terms of his general popularity rating, still, he basically led that race wire to wire. Only in the latter days of the election was there some sort of serious tightening. But for pretty much the entire race, Obama led in the Real Clear Politics polling average for the entirety of the race. Joe Biden is behind. And he's behind in the swing states. And it ain't getting better. And so Democrats are forced to pick up wilder and wilder stories in an attempt to cudgel Americans into believing that their political opponents are evil. The latest example of this is this unbelievably stupid story about Samuel Alito's wife putting up an appeal to heaven flag at their vacation house. This is the stupidest story I have ever heard. It's so dumb. So first, there was this unbelievable story about Samuel Alito's wife putting up an American flag upside down, which is typically a sign of distress. And she was doing so because she was in a fight with a neighbor or something. And so the media tried to pretend that it had something to do with support for January 6th. It didn't. Then they said that the flying of an Appeal to Heaven flag, which was created by George Washington, that was some sort of white supremacist exercise, which is strange because yesterday, literally yesterday, San Francisco officials removed a colonial-era Appeal to Heaven flag from the Civic Center Plaza. It had flown there since 1964. So for 60 years, they flew the Appeal to Heaven flag, and then they decided to remove it after the controversy broke out about Alito. So this is very typical stuff where Democrats just redefine a term to mean a thing it totally doesn't mean. It's where they go and rewrite the dictionary to match a thing. I remember they did this with Amy Coney Barrett. Amy Coney Barrett at one point suggested the term sexual preference, meaning sexual orientation. Sexual preference was used for a very long time in this country as the equivalent of sexual orientation. It is not meant to be a discriminatory term. The left declared it a discriminatory term, so then it was just added to the dictionary as a discriminatory term. They just retcon the whole thing. This is the exact same thing they're now doing with the Appeal to Heaven flag, specifically so they can pretend that they're really, really angry at Samuel Alito over all these flags. So just to be straight about this, Democrats love the Palestinian flag, love it. A flag that stands for a group of people who 70% support October 7th and suicide bombings. But they're really pissed off at the Appeal to Heaven flag. That's the thing that really makes them mad. Samuel Alito said he's not going to recuse himself on cases involving the 2020 presidential election or the January 6th, 2021 riot. He said the two incidents you cite do not meet the conditions for recusal. As I've stated publicly, I had nothing to do with the flying of that flag. I was not even aware of the upside down flag until it was called to my attention. Because my wife is a private citizen. She possesses the same First Amendment rights as every other American. She makes her own decisions. I've always respected her right to do so. My wife is fond of flying flags. I am not. Okay. This, of course, set off the morons over at MSNBC. So here's the MSNBC legal analyst, Melissa Murray, very angry at Samuel Alito for not abandoning his seat on the Supreme Court because his wife put up a flag that the media decided was bad 5 seconds ago.
First of all, this letter is nominally addressed to Congress. It is a giant double-fingered FU to the American public. This man is not simply saying he is not fond of flying flags, but his wife is. He's basically trolling Americans who know that he is the author of Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization, the decision that withdrew the constitutional right to an abortion that Roe versus Wade established. He wrote that decision, and he says not once, not twice, but 3 times. He refers to his wife as a private citizen who's in possession of rights that allow her to, quote unquote, make decisions that he has always honored and respects her choices to do so. Again, this is the same man who withdrew from millions of American women the right to make decisions about their own body. This is a trolling letter, a giant FU to the American public.
Actually, it's technically a giant FU to the lady with the really, really thick glasses, which don't make her any smarter. One of my favorite things about MSNBC is apparently there's a widespread aesthetic belief at MSNBC that the thicker your glasses, the smarter you look. That is not a thing. Eventually, we're just going to end up with like the giant clown glasses. These people are going to be wearing the blippy glasses, the huge cartoon glasses, because that makes them look very smart. But unfortunately, it doesn't actually make them smart. Are you tired of the lies and the twists of the mainstream media talking points? Yeah, me too. Join me in my newest series, Fact, where I dismantle and bring truth to this tiring mainstream agenda.